as older you get, the better you can remember things from the past. No TV, nothing that's spectacular, but not me somehow. Today is day 9 of my 30 days challenge talking to the camera in English. Today's topic and the thing that I have to talk about is telling a story from my childhood, and it must be a funny story from my childhood, which is very difficult for me because I'm that old that I cannot remember about my childhood anything. I told this my daughter and I asked her if she knows any funny story. Well, I actually didn't ask her if she knows any funny story about my childhood, but I told her that I must talk about this funny story, and I cannot remember any funny story from my childhood. And she actually gave me a couple of examples, a couple of stories that I told her in the past from my childhood. I think it's somehow interesting that my children know more about my childhood than myself. I tend to forget things very fast, which is sometimes a very good side of me. It helps me very much when I watch movies, then 2 days later I cannot remember what happened in this movie and I can watch it again. The story of mine as I was a child, and it is not really funny to be honest, but the one of 3 that my daughter remembers that I told her, and there is not really a lot to say. It is about me in the first grade. In the first grade we had school in the morning and in the afternoon. Children that had grandparents that which were able to look for them at the afternoon were allowed to go home at lunch and then spend the afternoon with their grandparents and write their homeworks at home, and the rest of us had to stay in the school and write the homeworks at school. At some point in time in the spring, I lied to the teacher that my grandparents are waiting for me, and I went home at lunch. And there was another girl that went also at lunch at home. I cannot remember if her grandparents were there, but obviously not, because we spent the afternoons together. A couple, I think 1 or 2 weeks it should be, because then my parents figured out what I'm doing and how they figured out. So I was meeting my friend at the afternoon and we played together around the corners, and what we also did, we played a lot with cats. There were outside a lot of cats, and one day I did one huge mistake to take a cat home, a small kitty. I don't really remember this. I remember I think it was a small black kitty, and I took it with me, and I think it hid behind the couch. These are some memories that I have about it. This was when my parents found out what I'm doing, that I'm not in school at the afternoon because there was a cat at home. And that's it, that's the story actually. I had a friend, and with this friend of mine we just played outside with cats in the afternoon when I had to be in the school. Nothing that spectacular. I was thinking, because I can remember about my grandparents, they told me a lot of stories from their life and they gave me a lot of advices, and I was thinking that as older you get, the better you can remember things from the past, but not me somehow. I cannot remember from my childhood. It is funny because my son is making jokes about that as we were little, then we didn't spend that much time on playing video games or mobile games, but we were all of the time outside and played in the nature with friends, because they are not doing this. This is something that their teachers are telling them all of the time. as we were in your age, we were outside and played football. And this is actually true because back then we didn't have any devices at all. My parents, they were engineers and they was able to take a computer home to work at home every now and then. There was no internet as I was in the first grade at all. And I can remember the first time that I saw internet and it was so special. My mother showed me, I think in Yahoo, how the clouds are moving, and I thought it is spectacular that you can see how the clouds are moving right now. And then the people which are working for the weather, that they can then estimate how the weather is going to change in the next couple of days. And nowadays it is so exact, it was unbelievable back then. And something else that we had at home that not many people knew that it existed, we had a big player with plates, like CDs, but huge CDs. My father had in his work, and he was allowed to take it every now and then at home, and they had 2 or 3 from these huge CDs with films and 2 and 3 with music. And they had Star Wars, the first episode of Star Wars, episode 4, New Hope. I grew up with Star Wars, obviously. And this is even as I was even younger, probably 5 or 6 years old. But 6 is actually first grade. And then music, they had ABBA and Pink Floyd, what I can remember. This was very interesting. We didn't have this recorder with the VHS. We had it then later, but this was the first one what I saw in my childhood, these huge CDs. I don't know how to call them else than CDs. I can remember that we didn't have a TV. The first TV that my parents both had only black and white screen, and I was in the kindergarten then. How people were able to survive without any device, I cannot imagine now. Okay, this was not really a funny story from my childhood. I had actually to work on my storytelling abilities. I hope it was some kind of a story. Can you remember? Let me know.